Most people assume that intelligence is a gift, that the smarter you are, the easier life becomes. Better decisions, better outcomes, better understanding of the world around you. But psychology tells a very different story. Because the people who think the deepest, analyze the most, and understand things others can't even see are often the same people who struggle the most. Not with work, not with knowledge, with life. With the quiet, persistent weight of a mind that never stops. And what looks like an advantage from the outside can feel like a prison from the inside. There is a well-documented phenomenon in psychology known as the intelligence-happiness paradox. Research consistently shows that people with higher cognitive ability are significantly more prone to anxiety, depression, overthinking, and existential dissatisfaction than the general population. Not because their lives are harder on paper, but because their minds process life differently. Where most people experience an event and move on, the high IQ mind dissects it, analyzes it, replays it, finds patterns, implications, and consequences that most people would never notice. And while this depth of thinking is what makes them perceptive and capable, it is also what makes it nearly impossible for them to simply rest. The same mind that solves complex problems before breakfast is the same mind that cannot stop analyzing a conversation from 3 days ago. That is not a bug. That is the cost of the gift. One of the least talked about struggles of high intelligence is loneliness. Not the loneliness of being physically alone, but the loneliness of being mentally alone in a room full of people. High IQ individuals often struggle to connect deeply with others, not because they are cold or arrogant, but because genuine connection requires a level of intellectual and emotional depth that is simply hard to find. Small talk feels exhausting, surface-level conversations feel hollow, and the topics that genuinely interest them, the deep questions, the uncomfortable truths, the ideas that keep them up at night, are often met with blank stares or polite discomfort. So they learn to mask it, to perform a version of themselves that fits the room, to participate in conversations they find meaningless because the alternative is isolation. And this performance is exhausting in a way that is difficult to explain to someone who has never felt it. Psychologists call this the burden of awareness, the inability to unsee what you have seen, unthink what you have thought, or unfeel the weight of understanding things most people around you do not. High intelligence and overthinking are almost inseparable, because a mind that is wired to find patterns, anticipate outcomes, and identify flaws does not switch off when the task is done. It keeps going. It applies the same analytical power to relationships, to decisions, to the future, to the past. It runs worst-case scenarios not out of pessimism, but out of genuine cognitive habit. And this creates a painful irony. The person best equipped to solve problems is often the person most paralyzed by them, because they can see too many outcomes simultaneously, too many variables, too many ways things could go wrong. Where a less analytical mind makes a decision and moves forward, the high IQ mind is still 3 steps back, questioning whether the decision was right in the first place. This is not weakness. This is what happens when processing power has no off switch. There is one more thing that makes life harder for high intelligent people, and it is rarely spoken about. Their standards, for themselves, for others, for the world. High IQ individuals often hold an internal model of how things should be, how people should treat each other, how systems should work, how conversations should go, and reality consistently fails to match it. This gap between what they understand is possible and what they actually experience creates a chronic low-level frustration that most people around them cannot understand. They are not being difficult, they are not being unrealistic, they simply see the distance between what is and what could be more clearly than most people ever will. And seeing that distance every single day without being able to close it is its own quiet kind of suffering. None of this means that intelligence is a curse. It is not. But it is also not the simple advantage it is made out to be. The depth that makes a person perceptive makes them prone to pain. The awareness that makes them insightful makes them prone to isolation. The standards that make them exceptional make them prone to disappointment. If you recognize yourself in this, or someone you know, understand that what looks like overthinking is often depth. What looks like distance is often self-protection. What looks like dissatisfaction is often a mind that can see farther than its surroundings allow. That is not something to fix. That is something to understand. And understanding it is the first step towards carrying it with a little more peace. If this video reflected something you have felt but never had the words for, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Mindset to Success for weekly videos on psychology, mindset, and personal growth. We'll see you in the next one.